Hi, and welcome to a Sense of Wellness podcast, inspiring and empowering a healthier you. I'm your host, Susan Greeley, and I'll be diving deeper into the 4 pillars of wellness: sleep, exercise, nutrition, and stress management. Today, I'm speaking with a digital mindfulness expert on how to find balance and navigate life and personal well-being in our current digital and high-tech world that leaves many of us overloaded and stressed out and even feeling more disconnected on a daily basis. My guest today is the creator of the JOMO Cast podcast, where she interviews mindful tech leaders on embracing what she has coined as the joy of missing out in order to thrive in today's rapidly changing world. Her name is Christina Crook. Christina helps creative leaders crush their goals and thrive online with the JOMO method. She's the award-winning author of The Joy of Missing Out, Finding Balance in a Wired World, and that's the harbinger of the global #JOMO movement. And her new book, Good Burdens: How to Live Joyfully in a Digital Age, releases this fall. Christina shares her insights about technology and our daily lives in international media, including the New York Times, Psychology Today, and Harper's Bazaar. So, Christina, thank you very much for joining me today. I'm really excited to have you share your insights and experience with our listeners.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, this is such a great discussion. I think lately people have been feeling so overwhelmed. Well, this has been going on for probably a decade at least, too, with social media overwhelm, digital technology overload. So in any case, your story, all I know is that in 2013, you decided to take a break from the internet for 31 days. So can you please tell us about your life and career path that led to that point? In other words, what triggered that digital detox, Christina?
Absolutely. So I am from Vancouver in Canada on the West Coast, and I studied communication. And basically it was a healthy liberal arts education focused on how mass media basically has come into being over history. So everything from, literacy through to, the digital world that we live in today. And so I was pretty keyed in early in my career to the harms and both the benefits and also the detriments of technology. And I started my career at the CBC, which is our public broadcaster here in Canada, and then moved from there, from broadcasting into freelance journalism. And I moved at that time to the heart, so the center of Canada, as they like to call it, to Toronto. And all of a sudden, all of my relationships in sort of one fell swoop, all of my friends and family, that I was close to were, a continent away from me. And so all of a sudden, all of my relationships and a lot of my work contacts as well were mediated all of a sudden through the internet, through email and social media. And so this creep kind of happened where I was spending more and more and more time on social media, more and more time on email. I had a blog at that time and was kind of like obsessing about like my online persona. And I was starting to feel really uncomfortable with the role it was playing in my life. And so I had this spark of an idea, which was to give up the internet for a year. I floated that to my family and they were all like, no way, we're going to be completely cut off from you. Like you cannot do that. I kind of roped it back to this experiment for 31 days. And it wasn't just that I completely disconnected from the internet in every way, shape, or form. It was that I did something instead, which was that I wrote a letter to the same friend on an old typewriter. Some of them were handwritten, but mostly on an old typewriter, and mailed them every day to chronicle the experience. And what I found was peace of mind, clarity of mind. Like all of a sudden, my creative juices started flowing. I had 2 young kids at the time. All of a sudden, I found I had all this margin for creative projects I wanted to tackle. What I felt like I had no time at all. Of a sudden, I realized all those little 5-minute, 10-minute, 20-minute check-ins online actually banked up to be a lot of time in a day. And so that's kind of where this journey of exploring how we live well with technology began for me.
Mm-hmm. It's fascinating. Just that clarity and peace of mind. How do you find that on a daily basis? And I think people aren't even aware that they're missing that, because that takes me to the next question in this whole term, FOMO, or the fear of missing out. So I think that is a recent phenomenon where if you check out, good Lord, what am I missing? And so that fear of missing out is a real thing, but you've termed the joy of missing out. So can you please explain what that means and the importance and relevance of that to all of us at this time?
Mm-hmm. So obviously, JOMO is the inverse of FOMO, joy instead of fear. And I really define it as the joy of missing out on the right things, because of course, missing out isn't fun. No one wants to miss out, right, on something they should be experiencing. But the thing is, we're having all of these fears of missing out on things that we don't even really care about. We don't even really value, but there's this, undertone constantly, this scarcity model built into the way the social media platforms are built, for example, right? You need to be on all the time or else you truly will miss certain things in the feed. And we're not sort of taught to question, but does that matter? Like, do I actually need that in my life? And so the joy of missing out, like I said, is the joy of missing out on the right things. And I really hone in on life-taking things like toxic hustle, comparison, and digital drain. And I really do believe that we control our digital consumption. It's hard work. It's attentive work. It's mindful work to pay attention to the voices that we're hearing on a regular basis and start saying, like, I don't need that in my life. Like, I'm not going to miss that. Like, I can say no to it. But yeah, so that's sort of where the joy of missing out became. And I think what's really exciting about it is actually, my book was originally titled Digital Detox. And at the very last minute, this is just like a little piece of serendipity for those of your listeners who are fans of serendipity. But at the very last minute, like within a few months of publishing the book, the name had to be changed, and we changed it to The Joy of Missing Out. And I think I'm thankful every day that happened, because it completely reframed the conversation to a removal of something. Detoxing, right, automatically has this negative connotation to joy. Like, what are the joys we can step into when we disconnect from the internet, for example? So yeah, that's where that all began for me.
I completely agree. I think that's the point, switching from that state of fear and something negative like the detox, right, to joy, to a very positive way of looking at it. And there's so much around that, the limiting digital consumption that seeps into other aspects, my 4 pillars, right, on how we sleep, our stress, even exercise. I think other things get neglected as a result, right, of we'll call it overindulging in the digital world. So what are some factors that prevent people from really tapping into the JOMO, the joy of missing out? And also, how do you, at the same time, I want to just really dive deep into what is digital mindfulness, Christina? How do we practice digital mindfulness?
So I have a couple of responses to this. I'll start with the fact that people that are happy with technology use it really differently. So I think it's not just how do we mindfully stop or reduce our time online, but it's also what is the quality of the time we're spending there. So I want to start with the quality of the time we're spending there, and then maybe some strategies around how to reduce. Perfect. So that we can spend time doing the 4 pillars, spending time on the 4 pillars. Right. So yeah, people that are happy with technology, like the role it plays in their life, use it really differently. They use it for community, for care, and for creativity. And this is directly out of the research of a professor at Pratt University. Her name is Dr. Pamela Pavlicek. And she is an emotional ethnographer. And she studies, the way technology impacts our emotions. And so she studied thousands and thousands of people, actually had them keep personal journals about their technology use. And this is what emerged from the research. And I found that so endlessly fascinating. And that has become a real core piece of my teaching is, if we are using technology in ways that support community care, we could say care of others, but care of ourselves. Like, for example, this morning, I used an app on my phone to exercise. That is caring for myself. Absolutely. Right? Yeah. And for creativity, right? Contributing something new in the world, not consumptive. This is the big, big difference, right? Being creative, contributing something versus passive consumption. So I think that's an important framing, because I am the last person in the world to villainize technology. Technology is empowering this conversation.
Yes, true.
Right? It's allowing us to be creative and hopefully, right? Caring for others through this conversation. So there's that. Then there is,
I love that. Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. Then there's the technology use side. And I am constantly framing this not in a how do we reduce or limit arbitrarily our tech use. I will say, I'll be honest, I probably started there earlier in my work, because that was the easy thing to do. Just make sure you take a day off a week, right? To completely unplug, reset, have a Sabbath, whatever it might be.
Right.
But now what I focus on, and I hope your listeners will benefit from this, is focusing on what is life-giving and what is life-taking. So I actually suggest to people that at the end of each day, you take 5 minutes, ideally on a piece of paper, at least to get started, and just make 2 little columns. One says life-giving or life-taking. You could call it energizing or de-energizing. You can use your own language around that. I have a couple of different terms to use: joyful, despairing, whatever. I use life-giving and life-taking because I like focusing around life. And just write down a couple of things. What was most life-giving today, and what was most life-giving and life-taking? And you'll quickly find that not mindful, right? Unmindful. Is that how we say it? Not mindful?
Yeah.
Unmindful?
I think so.
No. Unmindful? Not mindful. Unmindful. Technology use falls in the life-taking column. Very quickly, you're going to see, oh, right, the 45 minutes I spent scrolling Instagram today wasn't really life-giving. It was life-taking. But that walk I took, even maybe on my phone, right, to do a call around my neighborhood, that was actually really life-giving. And through that practice, you start to see, right, where the energizing and de-energizing pieces of your technology come into play. And so I can give you strategies like, don't start your day with your phone, right? This is a fairly obvious one. Also, don't end your day with your phone, right? Create a buffer in there where, you wake up and you have a practice around whatever, exercise or sitting in quiet with a favorite cup of coffee and doing some journaling, something else, right? Because you don't want to start your day in a place of stress. Go ahead.
Right. No, but to that point, as you said, it enables the creativity and maybe some positive self-care habits, such as, I have to admit, I wake up and I do a meditation daily, and I actually use an app on my phone for the guided meditation. Right. So I think it's, without having those absolutes about technology, is where to bring it in if it does tie back to those positive uses as you identified. And that was really fascinating. The community, the self-care and creativity. Right. So in that sense, because I really did want to talk about, I'm all about giving people tools and daily routines and rituals that are supportive of their overall well-being. And so you just doing this daily reflection of the life-giving and life-taking list, I think is fabulous. It's very similar to keeping a gratitude journal or something like that. Right, Christina? So if you're okay with that, I just want to say that it just was an aha moment for me too. I believe that I have these healthy habits, but I start my day with my phone.
And you should not feel any shame about that, right? So I love that you called that out right away. This is the way I use technology right away in my day. And then here is how I mindfully use it, is a great pushback, right? Because these arbitrary rules around shoulds and should nots, right, really do just breed shame.
Yes. And judgment, which we don't want.
Which we don't want. And people do feel so much shame about being addicted to their phones. And because of the work that I do, people are especially ashamed when they're around me. I can't tell you how many times people are like, I'm so you're out to have a drink or whatever.
And they'll apologize. Right.
They're I'm so sorry. I'm looking at my phone for 5 seconds. It's really okay. But where does shame take us? It takes us absolutely nowhere. And so, focusing on, and of course, the life-giving, right, is obviously interchangeable with joy. What are those things that bring you alive? What are those things that bring you joy? And the way that I define joy is the elements of joy or well-being and success. If you look at the dictionary definition of the word joy, written right into that definition are well-being and success. So I define well-being.
I did not know that.
Yes, this was like a huge, this is actually
Also.
years after my book came out. And I just went in to like do a little word study, and lo and behold, there they are. And what does every person want? They want
Well-being and
and
success.
success. And so I define well-being as having a positive relationship with your abilities and your limits, because I think of course, we all have real limits. And I do believe that we all have different limits. We all have different capacities. So for me, well-being is really that positive relationship with both parts of ourselves. And then success is simply the achievement of goals, right? If you look across the board, anyone that, does study and work on goals and goal setting, that's really what it is. It's achieving a goal that you have set for yourself. That's what success is, right? You define it for yourself. And so built right into that word of joy are those two elements of well-being and success. And so yeah, that's kind of how I come at this entire conversation about technology. We haven't really used the word technology very much, but I think that's a good thing, actually.
Right. Yeah, I guess initially and before this conversation, I was thinking of kind of it's unlike me, but the negative aspect of it lately, because technology does create a lot of stress for people when it goes awry. It's really such a blessing and a curse in so many ways.
Yeah.
And so even just like the start of our conversation, you have reframed it for me as a, person completely focused on health and well-being and supporting people's mental and physical health. So you've helped me just reframe it, because lately it has been a huge stress for me, just when like too much technology, and as I said, when it goes awry. And so, but that said, do you have any information on, can you kind of share insights about how it does increase our stress levels or impacts our mental health these days? Not to dwell on the negative,
No.
but I'm just curious.
No, we do. We do need to talk about it, I appreciate you being candid about the stress that you're feeling on a daily basis. And I would, be remiss if I didn't say that it also creates stress for me, which is why I do the work that I do, and managing it and organizing it and thriving with it. But I will say, okay, so there was a report by Wattpad, a Gen Z report on JOMO, actually, and they said that 74% of people feel stressed often or very often online. 53% say they find themselves spending too much time online, and 73% want to improve their overall health, be more active, create stronger self-care routines, etc. So this is something people are thinking about. This is something that is a struggle for most people. And so part of the work that I do is actually, I run a digital well-being membership. And one of the things we do every month is a digital house cleaning party.
Nice.
It's just like it sounds. We try to keep it playful and fun, because if you don't, no one's going to want to do it. Who wants to clean their house? Basically nobody. But cleaning your house digitally every month is a way to decrease that very ever-present overwhelm, right? Too many files on your desktop, too many apps on your phone, time wasted looking for things, right? You actually are wasting money probably because you have apps and products that you're not even using regularly, but you're just not getting in there and cleaning things out and being like, oh, right, I'm still paying $53 for that subscription that I'm not using anymore. So that is a significant piece of what I do and what I teach. And it's simply going through a series of questions. I can give you some of them right now. One of them is with social media. We do a little purge on social media every month. And the questions we ask are, do I know who this is? When you go through your follow list, right?
Right.
First of all, who is this? Do I even know who this is, or what this brand is or organization anymore? If the answer is no, you unfollow. Okay. If they pass that test, then you go into the second test. The second test is this important? Do I want to bring this with me? Forward with me in my life? If the answer is no, you unfollow. But if they pass that test, then you go into the third question. And the third question is, you may have guessed, does it bring me joy, right? Is this bringing joy into my life? Is this uplifting me? Is this still a voice I want in my life? Because there's times that, you want something in your life, and then your circumstances, right, and your needs change, and you don't need that in your life anymore. So having regular monthly, and people can absolutely do this, right? Your listeners can, everybody listening, you can do this yourself, is blog off even 30 minutes to an hour to just do a cleanup of your devices. And I will tell you that it is a very liberating feeling, and it keeps me accountable every month. Every month before I do these live calls, I need to make sure that my desktop is organized exactly the way that I teach. And it reduces so much stress.
I'm just laughing, Christina. I literally rolled my eyes at thinking what my desktop looks like on my I so need this. This is perfect timing, and I know I am not alone. And so even as in what I do and my fellow health coaches, we love things like this because it helps us become better at what we do. So I am absolutely tying this into my coaching. And
yay.
Right? Those are some concrete steps that I think people just become so unaware of. I can't even tell you how many times I've spoken with people literally on a call and they can't find something on their phone because of the app overwhelm, because we don't see it. You look at it and you don't see it. So that alone, that purging of apps and also saving money that way, I'm sure if we polled also, the average person on the street, they probably couldn't tell you what subscriptions they have on their phone, and yet they're being automatically deducted. That's so fascinating. It's like an aha moment.
Didn't we get into a time savings conversation, but that is a residual benefit. Yeah,
it sure is, time and money, and who doesn't want to save that? But back to those stats about how many people are stressed. The 74%, I believe you said, who are right,
feel stressed often or very often.
Yeah. So these are ways, back to what you're talking about and giving us, these are really tangible tools to chip away at this stress on a daily basis. To that more, I would be very curious, do you have any daily routines or family, what's it like in your family, your household? I know you also have children. And so this is part of my stress with it as well, managing myself, setting an example. What does that look like for the family dynamic as well?
So studies show that shared technology experiences are actually really good for your family. So watching a movie together, watching a show together, playing video games together, when there's a social aspect to what you're doing, it totally transforms the experience, right? It used to be that we all had to watch TV together. There was no other option, but now all of a sudden we're all in isolation, right? We're all having these like cultural experiences independently, and we can't even talk about them, right? Because no one knows what's going on in each other's, podcast or show or whatever it is. So we have kind of classically, it's Friday. Tonight we will have homemade pizza night. We just use pitas, guys. This is not like glamorous, make your own. This is like basic, build your own pizza, movie night, right? And we have a little plastic container that when you have a movie you want to watch, it goes into a little container, and we pull one out because we found we were having fights all the time about what we're watching. So we just pull one out and that's what we're watching.
Love that.
Our kids get a free for all. My kids are currently 7, 9, and 11. Okay. So Saturday mornings, from when everyone's awake until 10 a.m., it's like a complete free for all. They can watch or do whatever they want. Obviously, like they have parameters around, accessing YouTube and different platforms or whatever it is. But like with their
they want to be up at 7 a.m. till 10 a.m., they're allowed.
They can have batter. Yeah. Sundays is completely tech-free in our house. We do ascribe to that sort of tech Sabbath or tech Shabbat idea. Tiffany Shalane is the founder of the Webby Award. She published a book a year and a half ago called 24/6, The Power of Unplugging One Day a Week. And she's been doing this practice with her robotics professor husband and obviously herself and their teenage daughters for a decade now. And so she's got beautiful stories about all that's created for their family in terms of creativity and connection and all of that. So that is a practice that we have. And then in terms of phones, our kids don't have any. They are thankfully still really quite young, although, they do have peers that are getting them. We are going to push it as far as we can. We don't have a date that they've been promised any kind of device, but COVID also changed a lot of things. Like they do things that they used to not do, which is like, chat with friends through a text messaging or do little video calls with their friends. We're still in lockdown in Toronto, if you can believe it. It's bananas. So, yeah, until tomorrow, actually, thankfully.
Boy.
So, anyways, not to like time date this, but, so yeah, I don't know if that answers your questions. Like we model, I know.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Just keeping Sunday sacred for family and just non-technology time. And I done that in the past sporadically. So this is also reminding me, and I hope listeners to put it on a regular schedule. And that's really the point, is to keep that one day or several hours for whatever it is, but on a regular schedule so that everybody just knows. And I do think that that's what leads to more creativity. No, not that I think it is. It absolutely does. And peace of mind, back to mindfulness practices, people feel more at ease and just allow themselves to kind of become introspective and reflective. And we all need that to decrease the stress in our lives, because there's not a single person, especially when we hear these stats, who isn't stressed out in some way, shape, or form simply because of the pandemic globally, right? And then add layers of technology that, again, we're so reliant on. So in any case, it's very complex, but that's why these simple messages to say, check out. I love, like, you're not missing out. In fact, find the joy in that detachment and turning off all of the devices. And so I'm laughing as you were saying that, though, about your children, because fast forward, mine, 3 out of 4 do have a cell phone, and I've lost them. And I think that this is kind of an epidemic thing as well for parents. And that's why I brought it up. And I don't know, we're not going to solve it in this conversation. I know that is a big challenge, because we feel huge. I've lost my children. Like, where are you? On the flip side, I at least want to say one positive thing is that I do see that through the pandemic, it's how, there's a lot of negative aspects to it, but it's social, and it is what has, in lieu of seeing friends personally, thankfully, they have devices where they can play video games together, and they can chat, and they can see each other, and they can FaceTime and whatever, so I don't want to overlook that or discount, but yeah, it's a complicated world we live in, and it is constantly changing, right?
Absolutely. Can I just say 2 things? And so the first is related to what you just said about kids. As you're speaking, I'm thinking to myself, I think maybe we lucked out to a certain extent, because our kids, like, I thought way back when, like, let's say Instagram, blew up and people had teenagers, I thought I feel so lucky that, like, my kids are not in this like grand social media experiment, right? Of like absolute binging, right? And like no one knows like the negative. We haven't like figured out that. But now we've kind of, there's this healthy awareness even among younger kids and teens to like filters, right? Not real, right? Like this is an ad, like a healthy media literacy. But these kids that have been doing online school for like close to a year, at least where I live, they see the limits. They see the limits. They're like, I don't want to be on a screen anymore. Like, yeah, I like talking to my friend, but like, I would way rather, right? I would way rather be with my friends.
Go out on a bike. Exactly.
Sure. One of my kids is like, I love it. And I've written it down. It's like one of my favorite sayings, but it's like friends are better than TV, mom. It's just like, isn't this like does not everyone like realize this?
You would think so, but it took a pandemic to get there.
Yeah. And then the other thing is just circling back to the conversation about taking breaks from tech, like the Sabbath idea, or, whatever, a day off tech, is it does instill panic or anxiety in some people, just taking it away. And so I just wanted to add in make a plan. What are you going to do with that time instead, and anticipate it and choose joyful activities, right? So you're excited about that time. You're not dreading that time. If you're dreading that time, then we've done this wrong. Like, what are you going to do instead? Are you going to meet friends for brunch? Are you going to go on a hike? Are you going to like make an iced tea and sit and like indulge in a book for an hour and a half? Like, get excited, make a plan, right? Don't just take it away. Yeah.
Right. Okay. No, that's very helpful. Planning that in, and the monthly so there's the monthly digital detox, or
Digital house cleaning.
House cleaning. Thank you. Exactly. Versus planning in when you're taking a break from it on a regular basis, whether that is daily for some people, and everybody's different. You know, to come the end of the day, it's the same thing as like if you plan that in to sit down and do your life-giving, life-taking list, that alone is a daily, right? A daily break from it. Because there are plenty of people, as we know, who still go to bed on their phone, looking at scrolling, reading news, TV and phones. That news, like that's, I think, a real issue for many people still, is they can't break themselves of feeling like they're going to miss something with the news, more to adults. And like, so that's a real challenge for a lot of people. And I can only encourage, take this advice from Christina. And I do this in one-on-one coaching, where you really need to carve out time in the evening for self-care habits. It could be a bath. It could be doing that daily reflection list. I like all of that, a walk outside in nature, anything like that. But I think that that is sacred time to really check out and put the devices away. Even though here I start my day with it because of the mindfulness, or, you know, my meditation practice. At the end of the day, though, I don't. It's done. I don't know if you feel the same, but that just helps me. Yeah.
No, I think, again, just framing the conversation completely away from shame and away from fear into, obviously your listeners are interested in well-being, right? This is why they're listening, wellness.
Exactly.
So, right, framing it towards what is life-giving, what is energizing, what is serving your well-being, I think is just the way to. And so when I hear you say, yeah, I start my day with an app, well, you're using that app completely mindfully, really positively.
For self-care.
Yeah.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, I'm ready to tune it all out. So that works for me. Yeah.
That's great.
Do you have any other, could be daily routines or habits that you practice yourself related to your wellness and well-being?
I'm looking around me. My habits really change. I'm a person that's pretty, like, I really kind of go in the moment. So something that I'm really enjoying right now, and I kind of referred to it earlier, is taking calls on a walk. And I've heard more and more people are doing this, but there's also a different kind of thinking. And there's a psychologist out of Montreal who I love, who taught me about this, which is how we think differently in movement. And even the conversation with like your partner, for example, you're going to have completely different conversations when you're moving and walking. And so I am finding, you know, making a point of getting out for a daily walk, even if I am listening to a podcast or on a call, has been a really, really helpful, energizing midday habit. And then in terms of, I'll just say one practical thing, I guess, if this is helpful for people, you're in control of your email. And I think an underused tool is your autoresponder. Autoresponders are not just for vacations. It might say on your provider that it says vacation settings, but it's actually just an autoresponder. And so you can set it whenever you want. You can have it on all the time.
Christina,
as a responder.
That's brilliant.
That says, hey, so great to hear from you. I check email at this time and this time. You can expect a response, right? And then you can give the time frame, which is a way that you can control, right, the inflow. Because being prisoners to our inboxes, whether they're on our phones or on our laptops or desktop computers, it is not the way. It is not the way, my friends. You need to like slow it down and like choose specific times of day, or even if you are self-employed and you can even check it, not every day, even better. And you know what happens? It actually can make your email more fun because, you know, we're always checking it because we're hoping there's a treasure in there. We're hoping there's something good in there, like a new opportunity or whatever, right? Like no one wants to like see a whatever, an invoice come in or
We know that feeling.
So yeah, so if you let it kind of like build up just a little bit, then you probably will find something good in there. So that's my little tip. I don't check my email all the time, and that those practices kind of ebb and flow a little bit. But that's my last little tip.
Oh, that's more than a little tip. I said that that's brilliant. And I think it is. It never occurred to me. And I think that that alone is so helpful because there are no boundaries. And setting these boundaries and empowering people, as you just said, by saying you're in control of that email. Thank you for saying that.
My
That's
pleasure.
huge. Yeah. Sometimes what I preach too, the small changes make a big difference. If somebody adds just that tool to their daily life of managing their emails and their inboxes, whew, like take a deep breath. That alone is a huge stress relief. Right? Oh, Christina, this is fabulous. I know we're winding down on our time here. So I want to spend the last few minutes giving you a chance to tell listeners a little bit more about what you do and how to find you. That's one thing. And then I have one final question for you.
Well, people can find me at Christina Crook, CROOK.com. There you'll find my podcast, the JOMO cast, where I interview the world's leading mindful tech leaders. So everything from the Chief Creative Officer of WeTransfer to Harvard University's Dr. Ellen Langer, who's arguably considered the mother of mindfulness. Really amazing conversations there, free for you to enjoy. I also, like I mentioned earlier, run a digital well-being membership just called Navigate. I believe navigating technology is difficult and I make it simple with the membership. And in there is where you can get that digital house cleaning party, which are pretty fun. Also, my books, you can find information about my books there as well. So that's kind of it, ChristinaCrook.com.
Fantastic. Okay, Christina, my final question for you today is, what is one thing you're grateful for today or at this moment?
I'm grateful for the perfect spring weather and my little tiny vegetable garden sprouting to life.
Oh, fabulous. Isn't that something to be grateful for? Wonderful. Well, thank you. I really have taken a lot out of this conversation myself. I hope listeners have as well. And I would really, truly love to have you back at some point. And good luck with your own podcast.
Thank you. I'd love to be back.
Thanks, Christina.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time to join me and listen to this episode. Listeners can find more information and also subscribe to the Sense of Wellness podcast at www.ccphp.net/SENS/podcast. That's www.ccphp.net/SENS/podcast. This show is brought to you by Castle Connolly Private Health Partners. We are a concierge medicine organization that partners with exceptional physicians to deliver an unrivaled healthcare experience while also empowering our members to achieve their optimal well-being. Be sure to listen in next time to the Sense of Wellness podcast, and remember, simple daily habits matter most.